Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Adventure Built. My name is Kelly. Today I'm installing an accessory management system from VoSwitch in my 2020 Tacoma. Stay tuned. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm finally at the point in my build where I need to install more accessory lights. When Trevor and I were in Moab, lighting was a huge issue, especially because a lot of the trails we did went into the night and all I have are LED headlights and my stock fog lights, and they were not great.
Yeah, rock lights are a must. I can't see his tires at all. Sure. Passenger.
Trevor blew me out of the water with his rock lights and the lights on his push bar. He really was light up the trail for me. There are a lot of accessory management systems on the market, and the price ranges from 150 bucks all the way up to well over $1,000 for the S-Pod. I kind of stayed more low middle. I ended up going with the VoSwitch UV100, and this is their switch panel power control system, which is more of a universal mount on the RAM mount system. Now this kit has gotten really good reviews, but I've never seen a long-term test of it. So after the install, I'm gonna give about 6 months and some good trail use, and I'll come back to you guys and give you guys a full review. This video will just be the install. The review will be down the road. Let's see what's in the box. Obviously, it comes with the switch management system, which comes in a plastic housing, and the VoSwitch one is really nice because it's completely waterproof. The whole panel comes completely pre-wired, which is really nice. Next is the RAM mount controller, and this is actually in an aluminum housing, which is kind of surprising. I really did expect it to be plastic, but this feels really quality. Then you have the RAM mount system. There's a RAM mount for your standard RAM mount, and then you have a bar clamp RAM mount. And then of course you have all of your zip ties, your wiring, your hardware, your instructions, and your fuse tap in this little bag right here. Opening up the control box here, you can see it's a fuse block type setup. And I'm not an electrical engineer, but it really does look very high quality. All the wires feel really good. It feels very nice. All right guys, that's what's in the box. Before we get this install started, if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. It really does help Adventure Built grow. And if you like the video, hit that thumbs up. All right, let's get this thing started. Step number 1 is going to be identifying where we're gonna mount the control panel. Now, I'm gonna keep it close to the battery, so it's gonna be on the driver's side. I've identified these 2 holes here that I can sink some bolts into that are right over the relay and fuse panel. And I think I'm just going to fabricate kind of an aluminum shelf for the control box to sit on. I'm just gonna start this out by making a rough outline. Basically all this is a big aluminum plate that I made a little oversized for now, and I can always cut it down as we go along. And it's got 2 wings on it so that I can fold these underneath for support. Let's get this thing cut out, see how it goes. So checking on the way it fits, it looks pretty good. I still want to have access to this relay and fuse panel. It might be a little inhibited, but I should still be able to access it if I need be. Let's cut it out of aluminum and see if it works. So you know there's a lot of time lapse in there, but what I basically did was I turned this piece of cardboard into a bent up piece of aluminum. Now this is just, I don't know, maybe 1/8 inch plate aluminum. It was just a scrap piece at my local metal supply store. And I made this with simple hand tools. It was basically a couple blocks of wood, a rubber mallet, and a pair of pliers. I mean, that was really all it took for me to bend this up. It's very rudimentary, but hopefully it's nice and solid. I also took the little cutoff pieces of the plate out there and made a little L brackets for it that I'm going to drill and rivet into this to kind of form a reinforced bend in it. So it's gonna look like that. So now I'm gonna get these holes drilled and get this thing riveted together and then drill the holes for the mounting. All right, so my homemade mounting plate for my VoSwitch is completely fabricated, and it's probably not my best work. I don't work with aluminum very much, and trying to bend it's a lot different than steel, but I think it came out pretty nice. A lot of this plate's going to be covered by the VoSwitch. I'm not super concerned about looks necessarily. I just want to make sure it's nice and strong. So now let's get this mounted up and see if it can really hold the weight of the VoSwitch, because that's the most important thing. I'm getting a lot of flex out of this plate that I really don't want. What I ended up doing is fabricating a short little 3/4 inch plate that I mounted to the brake portion here, and now I'm gonna bend it over. I'm gonna basically press down on this bracket to take up some of the slop, and then I'm gonna bend this plate, and then I'm gonna rivet this right into this plate, and that will hopefully stiffen it up enough to make this whole thing secure. I'm gonna take the VoSwitch, I'm gonna put it on the plate, I'm gonna mark all the holes to drill out. I don't want to drill in the engine compartment. The aluminum pieces, they just go everywhere. So I'm going to pull this whole thing out to do this little reinforcement plate. And while I'm there, I'm going to drill the holes out for the VoSwitch. Okay, now that I've got that marked, let's pull the whole thing out and drill some holes. This is where I'm mounting this plate. It's right next to the brake reservoir. There's this weird little hook deal. I don't know what it's all about, but this I think it's an M6 nut. It fits right inside this. And all I did was I made sure that the inside of this bracket is super, super smooth. I roughed it out with the grinder, and then I kind of just smoothed it out with like 300 grit sandpaper just to make sure it was super smooth, because this little wire that goes to the brakes is right next to it. It doesn't touch it, but it's next to it, and under off-roading conditions, I don't want it to cut that wire, even though it is protected with that big thick rubber boot. So better safe than sorry. Got the bracket in and it is super solid. Once I put this front brace on here, I completely trust this with the weight of the VoSwitch. It's not a lot, but off-roading, it's gonna bounce a lot, and this thing is super solid. All right, let's start mounting the VoSwitch. Real quick, let's go over how this actually gets installed into the truck and how it gets wired. Right off the top, you will see this very thick cabled line wrapped in a braided cover. Now this is the main power to the battery. Moving clockwise around the control panel, you see the wire here that has the waterproof plug to it. Now this is actually to the control switch that goes into the vehicle. The black wire here to the negative battery terminal, and the red wire here is to a switched controller that is going into the fuse panel inside my vehicle. Now you don't have to use this red wire right here. This is to make this whole box switched, so when you turn the power of the vehicle off, it turns the power to this off as well. That way you don't have to worry about draining your battery. Step one for me, before I mount this box to the plate that I fabricated, I'm actually going to put the 2 wires through the firewall. I want to get that done first and out of the way, because working around this plate, I may need to take this thing off to access the firewall without a whole lot of obstruction. Under the driver's side floorboard here, this is the fuse panel. I've already removed the box on that we're gonna have to access. And this is the main firewall where all the wiring from the computer, the main harness, comes in. Now, I do not want to get anything anywhere near this main harness wire, which is kind of in the center of it. You can see it just right there. What I'm gonna do is actually make a slight hole right here in one of these little notches and send a hanger through. That way I can tape the wires to it from the engine compartment side and then pull it through into the cab. I have the coat hanger pushed through the plug in the firewall. I can easily see it and access it. I have a little, probably a good 6x6 hole between the plate and the firewall itself. I can reach down here and I can manipulate that hanger if need be. Now I have to uncoil these 2 wires, and I'm gonna use good Gorilla Tape to tape it to that coat hanger. You don't want that coat hanger to get halfway through and then the wires pull off. You really want it to be one fluid motion. So I'm gonna use really strong Gorilla Tape to make this happen. Also, when uncoiling these wires, make sure you've got all the kinks out. The last thing you wanna do is, after you pull through the firewall, realize that you have a big knot in it. So make sure they're all straight before you put it through. Now I'm gonna match up the 2 ends and tape it to the coat hanger. I got the 2 wires pulled from the engine bay into the cab through the plug in the firewall, and it didn't go super smooth. I made the hole very small in order to avoid any kind of environmentals getting from the engine bay into the cab, like mud and water and fumes. You don't really want that coming into the cab. That's why they put those rubber gaskets there. Now, once I realized the hole was a bit too small, took my razor blade and just sliced away until I was able to pull it through pretty forcefully. But it's in now, and let's keep moving on. The directions don't give a really clear order in which things need to get wired up. What I'm going to do is finish pulling the 2 wires through the firewall, and then I think I'm just gonna work on the inside of the vehicle to get that out of the way. I'm going to hook up the fuse, and I'm gonna hook up the control panel. That way that's just kind of done, and I can focus on the engine bay, and then it's just the power and the ground, and that's really it. The very first wire I do in the cab is going to be that red fused switch wire. Now the very first thing you want to do, that's the most important thing, is identify where you want this to plug into on the fuse box. Now this is the fuse box cover from inside of the cab fuse box, which I'm not going to joke is very, very hard to remove. I actually broke it removing it, which is fairly inconsequential because I am going to go with the Meso Customs aftermarket fuse box cover, which will allow these fuse taps to go in and the box will still be able to go on. This box, the factory box here, is just not big enough. So identifying the fuse that we're going to tap into, the directions call for you to tap into the ACC fuse, which is the one right here, the fourth one down on the left. Now, unfortunately, mine says ECU next to it, which is something to do with the computer, and I don't want to mess with that at all. Luckily though, on the right side here is a 7.5 amp USB fuse, which is the same as the ACC 7.5 amp. So I'm going to tap into that one. And when we insert this fuse tap, you can see here there are two slots for the fuse itself. This is for the switch controller, and this is for the factory fuse slot. It's going to be very hard to see when we get down under the dash. What I'm going to do is remove the factory fuse. I'm going to insert the factory fuse into this slot here, and then insert these two probes here into the fuse slot where the factory fuse was. Another component that took me a little while to kind of strategically figure out where I wanted it placed. I have the 3T pan from Expedition Essentials that I use for all my navigation, my phone holder, camera holder. However, I have a lot of stuff on there, and I think it's going to be too crowded with this accessory controller switch, which is a little, it's not big, but it takes up a lot of surface space because of the way it has to face you. So because I'm going to have my ham radio on top and my mic on the side with my phone and my huge 10.2 inch iPad, it's going to be super cluttered. So I've decided to do something a little bit different, and I'm going to mount this on the left side of my steering wheel. Let me show you where. This is the really nice VoSwitch 8 accessory controller panel, and it is really, really nice. I mean, it's all aluminum housed. These buttons just have very, very good textile feel to them. I thought they'd be a little bit harder to press, but they're very positive. A light pressure turns them on, turns them off. I really am impressed with the quality of this panel here. This is the RAM mount arm that came with the kit, and it's a little bit long from my application, so I swapped it out for a short arm. You can see it's about maybe an inch shorter, about almost half of what the factory arm is. With the shorter arm, it just makes this switch panel a little bit closer to the base. And the place that I'm gonna install it is actually right here. I've seen people install them in all kinds of different places, but I've never seen anyone install it right here on the AC vent bezel. But after removing this panel and reinstalling it, switching this out to the black trim on the AC vent ring, I have no doubt that this will hold nice and strong for a very, very long time. Now, the first thing I'm going to do to remove this panel, I'm not going to pull it all the way off because you have to pull off the bezel panel around the stereo head unit, which I really don't want to do. So I'm going to just pull this back a little bit to be able to access behind it. First things first, drop the steering wheel down to give us access to this right here, and just gives us more room to work. Then all we're going to do is take our fingers behind the panel here, and we're just going to pull straight out. And that's really all the room we're going to need to be able to drill through this and get some nuts behind here. Now I'm going to kind of figure out where this needs to sit on here so that there's much surface contact as possible. And this angle right here looks pretty good. I'm going to take my Sharpie, mark the holes. And I'm also going to figure out where the power is going to come out, and I'm going to try to fish it through the dash. That way there's no wires just kind of hanging anywhere. So right here where my finger's at, there's a spot where the dash kind of meets this bezel, and there's an opening between everything where I can probably snake that wire through from up behind the vent. I'm going to use the impact drill with a 5/32 bit on it because this is a lot shorter to get into this tight space with the windshield. I have the ball temporarily affixed to this, and it's actually really solid. I used the 5/32 drill bit on these holes, which was a little tight for the stock hardware that came with the kit, but that was on purpose so that it was a nice tight fit. And now I've identified with this plate here, I know where my hole can go, and I'm gonna mark that, pull this plate off, and then drill that hole out so I don't damage the base. First things first, I need to get the wire out through this vent here so that I have a better idea of the hole I'm gonna need to be able to access it through the top of this ram mount. So I'm actually going to use our handy dandy coat hanger once again and fish it through the dash. You can see here behind the dash, you can just see that light coming through right here. Now that is the bottom underneath the where the pedals are. I'm gonna fish the coat hanger through to where that light came from, attach the wire to the coat hanger, and then pull it right out. Like magic. With the cable pulled through the dash, I'm probably going to end up using a larger drill bit than I normally would for the cable size. That way it's gonna notch it, that's open on one side. I don't have to feed this big bulbous end through, because this would be a huge hole to be able to fit this through. I think notching it from the back side, that way I can just kind of push it up against it, be a much better idea. The drill bit didn't quite make the hole like I wanted. I wanted it to go all the way to the back part of this dash piece here. So I'm gonna use a Dremel with this auging bit to it, and this should rip through that plastic pretty quickly. I think that auging of it just kind of got it all nice and opened up. The hole looks big enough for the cable to rest in there and have a lot of room for clearance. I'm gonna clean up all this plastic mess. I'm gonna put the nuts on these bolts here from the underside and then get this bezel put back on. By hand, I'm just gonna put these nuts onto the bolts from the underside here. What I ended up using was an 8mm ratcheting wrench, open-ended wrench, and that has seemed to be doing the job. It's very slow going, it's one ratchet at a time, but I'm getting there. This is mounted nice and stable now. I'm gonna fish this wire kind of through the dash hole, under the clips, over the vent, and then down into the little notch that I created for it, and see if I can put this back together without anything interfering. And when you put this back on, watch these top clips right here on this side. They're kind of long and flat. You have to make sure that it's up high enough for them to grab. Just check as it goes in, both top and bottom. Make sure it's kind of lined up. I want that to be low, and then press. There. And that is solid. We might as well go ahead and finish installing the switch itself. Put the ram mount arm on this side. Put it on the base. I'm gonna tilt it all the way forward. And I'm gonna plug it into the plug here. I don't know if I showed you, there's actually a notch in here. It's 4 pins and there's a notch. Make sure the notch lines up properly. So align the notch on the 4-pin plug, insert it, and then complete the connection by rolling down that knob there. Tighten up the ram mount, and there it is. Before I move on to the engine bay to finish the connections there, I'm gonna clean up the wires under the dash. So the long black wire that I couldn't cut down, I'm going to coil up and zip tie up out of the way. The inside the cab wiring is done and it looks really, really good. I really don't have any issues whatsoever with my mounting location for the switch panel itself. But I think a year from now, I'm gonna do a follow-up review about this whole thing, maybe 6 months to a year. And I'll let you know if that's a good place for that to sit or not. Only time will tell. We only have 2 more wires to hook up to get this thing completely done. And I'm gonna start with the power, and then I'm gonna do the ground very last. First things first, before I hook up this battery cable to the positive battery terminal of the battery itself, I'm actually going to route this wire to go back towards the fender. That way it floats against this wall. Let me show you why I routed this the way I did. So I took the wire that starts here off the front of the box and I routed it underneath the box on the back side of the fuse box here. I ran it behind the plastic bracket here and then doubled it over and came back and made a loop. My real intent here is serviceability. I want to have access to all the fuses in here, so I can just pull this up and out of the way to access this. I can move this over so I can access this fuse block. Right now where it's sitting, it really isn't gonna move around a whole lot, so it's pretty secure there. And it's also not interfering with anything going on here. Basically the wire routes right back up to the positive battery terminal, kind of in a factory manner. I didn't want it to come around this way. I didn't want it to come around this way. I wanted to be all protected, so I wired it this way. And I think it'll last a long time. The very last wire that I have to hook up is this ground wire. And it's gonna go right here to where the factory battery ground is. So I know it's a good ground. I'm just gonna tuck it in behind it. It's gonna be a super short draw, and I might actually just cut this whole thing down. It's a lot of wire to go about 1 foot. I cut this down because it doesn't need to be that long. I like the factory connection, so I kept that, and I used a butt connector to join them. The final step is to mount the box to the plate. The VoSwitch UV100 is mounted up in my 2020 Tacoma, and this thing is super solid. I'm super happy with the engineering of this plate right here. But the real question is, does it turn on? I don't know, let's go see. Moment of truth. Hey, it works. Nice. So that was the complete step-by-step process to fabricate the bracket and to install the VoSwitch UV100 into my 2020 Tacoma. It was really an easy project. I didn't think it was that long. With video and everything else, it probably took me about 4 hours. I could easily see it being done in 2. I'm gonna have a completely separate video on how to program the VoSwitch. It is programmable, along with how to wire lights into it. I've got rock lights I've been dying to install, and of course the fun part, putting the stickers on the buttons. I will link all the tools I use in the description below. If you like the video, hit that thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber to Adventure Built, consider subscribing. It really does help the channel grow. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram. It's adventurebuilt_. See you guys next time. Hey, what's up guys? It's Editor Kelly here, and I'm just wrapping up editing this video. And I have some amazing news for one lucky winner. We're doing our very first giveaway. Victor from VoSwitch, he is going to donate one UV100 to be given away on this channel for one of you lucky viewers. To be entered into the drawing, you have to be subscribed to the Adventure Built channel. Like this video and then leave a comment about what you would do with that VoSwitch that you win. And for everyone else that doesn't win, don't worry. Victor is promising a 20% off discount coupon code for VoSwitch.com, and I'll put that down in the description below. He hasn't gotten to me yet, but he will very, very soon. I will announce the winner of the drawing on the end of the video that I will release on February 8th. I release a weekly video every Monday, so that Monday's video will have the winner at the end of it. Now, if you want to stay up to date on how the giveaway is going, follow us on Instagram. It's adventurebuilt_. There will be a lot of information on there about how many entries there are and what your chances of winning are. So follow us there, and best of luck.